speak. Cosima is a little bit in a transit at this moment, but would you start us inviting this?
Yes, of course, I can do that. If the background noise isn't too loud, you decide. Okay, it
So
seems that
I
it's loud.
think
And could you do it?
Yes, sure. Okay. Has it started, Mimi?
Yeah? Okay, great.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. We're very happy to welcome you today to this webinar co-hosted by the Switch Asia Policy Support Component and our partners, Habitat for Humanity. We will focus on the questions of sustainable housing today, diving into the topic of circular economy related to sustainable housing. So this is a little bit of housekeeping for you as you come in. Please, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, do not hesitate to ask them in the chat or the Q&A box. The recording will be available after this webinar. We will share it with you by email, the deck of slides as well. For now, your microphones are muted to avoid any audio interference. There will not be much time for you to ask questions live, but please do feel welcome to ask them in the chat. And now I would like to invite our co-chairs, Dr. Zenaida Fadeva, who is team leader of the policy support component, as well as Mr. Sanjeev Hada, who is Associate Director of the Program Operations for Asia Pacific at Habitat for Humanity, to open this webinar. So please, Dr. Zenaida, the floor is yours.
thank you, and very good afternoon and morning for colleagues from Europe, partners, friends, long-term friends. It is really good pleasure to welcome you to this learning session. We call it, of course, a webinar, but it is a learning session. And we are very pleased to continue the excellent collaboration between Habitat for Humanity and Switch Asia program. Our organizations or our programs have been working together over several years. It's good to see the faces of the friends, including through the Switch Asia Housing Forum and Sustainable Consumption and Production Innovation Awards. And we are really delighted to build on this partnership now within this event. For those of you who are not very familiar with Switch Asia is a European Union flagship program supporting sustainable consumption and production and the transition towards a circular economy across Asia. EU is also working with a similar program of transition in other regions. For almost 2 decades, Switch Asia has been working with government, business, financial institutions, recently increasingly academia, civil society, to help countries to develop, on the one hand, policies, and this is policy support component of the Switch Asia, and also strengthen institutions and support businesses in becoming more resource efficient, competitive, and resilient. And also the grant component of Switch Asia has been more focusing on modeling the SCP and circular economy practices across Asia and Pacific. Today, Switch Asia supports cooperation with more than 40 countries across Asia and the Pacific, helping translate circular economy principles and practical solutions into the actual sustainable economic development. This reflects the European Union broader commitment to working with partner countries on achieving sustainable development goals and supporting just transition towards more resilient and resource-efficient economies. And through initiatives such as the EU Global Gateway, the European Union seeks to promote sustainable investment, strengthen value chains in the country, within the region, but also particularly between Asia and Europe. It supports development of innovation, improvement of quality of life through long-term partnership. So partnership is really the main focus there. Housing is one of the most fundamental human needs. We all know that, and yet across Asia and also the Pacific region, providing housing which is adequate, which is affordable, which is resilient, becomes really increasingly challenging. Rapid urbanization, limited public resources, growing climate risk, rising construction costs, pressure on natural resources make this really difficult, particularly for less wealthy groups of the society, we do know. So, and that really requires us all to rethink not only how we build, but also how we use resources throughout the entire life cycle of the buildings. And this is precisely where the circular economy offers the important opportunity for us. And this is really the core expertise with which, or perspective through which Switch Asia is working. Very often, circular economy is still, as we know, understood more through the perspective of waste management and, in the better case scenario, recycling. But in reality, it begins much earlier. It starts with designing building for really not only longevity, not only for quality, but also for longevity and for adaptability, selecting sustainable and also locally available construction materials, improving resource efficiency during the construction, but also creating buildings that are durable, repairable, and easily upgradable over the time. It also encourages innovation, not only in the products and materials, but also in construction technology, production processes, business models, but also in planning. And that can help sustainable housing hopefully become affordable and commercial viable, not only at the stage of procurement or purchasing construction, but also throughout the lifespan of the building and the whole area where these buildings are available. So ultimately, the most circular buildings are often the ones that remain safe, useful, and valuable. And here's a keyword for generations. And we will see examples of such construction examples today among our speakers. The approach delivers multiple benefits simultaneously. It reduces life cycle costs, strengthens and resilience to climate. It prevents supply chain disruptions. It lowers greenhouse gas emissions, creates opportunities for local businesses and also for decent jobs, and improves access to safe and affordable housing. And this is our partners' really major expertise. In other words, circular economy is, in our view, not only an environmental agenda, it's also equally economic, social, and development agenda, or good development agenda. However, achieving this transformation requires much more than individual projects. So we will hear from those, of course, today. It depends on the enabling policy environment, modern building codes, circular public procurement, or green public procurement, innovative financing, supportive standards, risk-informed planning, market, and really market which recognizes the value of secondary materials while maintaining safety and quality. And this is, of course, many of those practices, policies, and standards are very nicely available in the European countries, and it would be very good exchange at the policy level to learn among the countries what is applicable and how those experiences in the EU could be adopted in Asia and the Pacific. So today's session brings together exactly the right combination of perspective, practitioners who understand what works on the ground and policymakers who can create the conditions for those solutions to scale. So this dialogue hopefully will bring new ideas, new partnerships, and practical actions that help make resilient, circular, and most importantly, affordable housing for all categories of people who need it in Asia and also in the Pacific region. So thank you very much and look forward to today's discussion. Over to you, Elodie.
Thank you very much, Zenaida, for this opening remarks. And now I would like to pass the floor to Mr. Sanjeev Hada, who is Associate Director of Operations for the Asia Pacific region in Habitat for Humanity. Sanjeev.
Thank you, Elodie. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the region and around the world. My name is Sanjeev Hada, and I'm with Habitat for Humanity International's Asia Pacific Regional Office. And as we all know, housing is certainly the core focus of Habitat's interventions, amongst many other things, but housing is certainly the core focus that we work around. It is my pleasure welcoming you in today's joint learning session between EU Switch Asia and Habitat for Humanity International. This collaboration builds on a shared commitment to advancing sustainable, resilient, and inclusive housing solutions across the Asia-Pacific region. As we face growing challenges from climate risks to rapid urbanization, housing affordability, there is an urgent need to rethink how we design, build, and scale housing systems. The change is not only to build more homes, but to ensure that they are sustainable, resilient, accessible to the ones that need it the most. Today's session, I believe, will bring together practical experiences, innovations with strong focus on circular approaches, locally adapted solutions, and community-led resilience. I see this as an opportunity to learn from each other, connect ideas to implement and explore how these approaches can be scaled within the national systems. I also strongly believe that today's session will not only generate knowledge, but also and also strengthen partnerships and inspire for actions moving forward. We look forward to rich discussions and meaningful exchange. Thank you, and looking forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you so much, and back to you, Elodie.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev, for these opening remarks. And now I have the pleasure to pass the floor to the moderator of our first panel, which focuses more on examples and cases of sustainability and housing. And I have the pleasure to pass the floor to Ms. Sabah Khawaja. Sabah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Elodie. Thank you so much. So I'm Sabah Khwaja. I'm based in Manila. I'm the Regional Director for Habitat for Humanity Terwilliger Center for Southeast Asia. And, as Zenaida and Sanjeev has already mentioned, for us, adequate housing and circular construction are two agendas that are pursued best when clubbed together. Circularity is not only an environmental strategy, it's also a social strategy. Well-designed circular housing not only improves affordability over the building's life cycle, but it also reduces the maintenance and the energy costs that are required to maintain that building, therefore creating healthier living environments for the people that require it the most, the low-income households and the poorest of the poor that are limited with the resources. The better we conserve, the better we are able to enable them to address other requirements in their life. So I'm very glad to introduce our first panel, which discusses circular economy cases that enable resilient and adequate housing buildings. And with me today, I have 4 panelists: Eliza from Rujik Center for Urban Studies, Usha Musky from Minergy. She's the former advisor for policy and governance, and she's been working with EU Switch Asia in Nepal. And also Xavier from Jeris, country representative of Mongolia. and Van Abino, Special Market Systems Specialist from Habitat for Humanity. So I would like to start off the discussion with Eliza. Eliza's her work focuses on community-driven urban planning and climate resilience projects, where the main focus is on participatory design approaches and their impact on community living. So, Eliza, I would like to invite you to share something about your work and how it relates to circular economy outputs.
Okay. Thank you, Sabah, and thank you for inviting me to this session. So, I think last time it was 3 years ago when Kampung Susun Aquarium, which is one of our project that also happened to won honorable mention in the sustainable consumption and production category of the EU Switch Asia program together with the Habitat for Humanity Asia Pacific. At the time, we also won innovation award during the same event as well. So I guess that also give us a lot of boost of how can I say a lot of boost, especially for the community, that this kind of collaborative and community-led housing could also reach international recognition. So I guess to answer to your question and also to give more concrete from the opening remarks. So this model that we have in the Kampung Susun is actually a co-design where the residents actively live and also maintaining it together. So one thing that probably contextual to this webinar is because of there are three things here. First, since the beginning of the design, we already acknowledge about the passive climate design, which also incorporating the passive cooling. Since we understand that the use of active cooling will also burden the residents, by installing aircon or even like the additional fan will also increase the electricity expenses as well. So so that's why in the building itself, it's allowing cross ventilation, wide corridors, so the communities can have many types of economic activities, and even the housing unit itself, allowing the residents to have small economic activities inside the houses, despite it's become actually similar to like typical vertical social housing. So there's also acknowledging like deep shading and also the void in the stairs, allowing become public space which is vibrant as well. At the same time, work as a wind chimneys, or we call it an architect is stack effect. So the building stay cool almost even during the summer season or the dry season. And then the second thing is one that could make it difference because is how it managed is using a collective and cooperative to manage the building, but at the same time to addressing the security tenure. So it stay affordable at the same time and also safe in terms of tenure security, and it cannot be sold out for outside of the for the people outside of the community or the cooperative. And the third one, I think that can also relate to this, the ground floor, which is reproduce the kampung, the informal settlement, or we call it kampung in Indonesia, which is a vibrant and allowing street life, and also carrying a lot of economic activities. That's also allowing the residents to thrive and also using the space collaboratively in order to pursue their economic activities. So I guess that's the combination of everything, how resilience, affordability, and livelihood designed together since the beginning. We also use the similar approach for our housing upgrading program in several informal settlements in North Jakarta, which is one of them is also supported by Habitat for Humanity Asia Pacific, located in Kampung Muka, North Jakarta, which where we co-design together with community to implement the passive cooling and also passive design all together while using the same still try to use the same material that coming from the previous home, and also while improving the structural safety at the same time. And one thing that important as well, the whole management and also construction managed by the housing cooperative set up with the communities, and the worker itself is also coming from the communities. So I guess that's another how can I implementation and interpretation by the community about the circular economy as well. So I hope it's give you a can I say overview about what we do and what we can share to Indonesia practices and also to Asia practices as well.
Thank you, Eliza, for explaining your project really well. And I have a follow-up question for you, that how do you think your co-design process, that how you're working very closely with the community, incorporating their need and resources, is informing the housing policy, especially for the informal segment in Indonesia?
So, because of, again, thanks to you and thanks to all the international acknowledgement, so we managed to build up our portfolio, and also many of the media kind of like, of course, cover us when we won this award. And also the next year, we also won the gold medal for World Habitat Awards. And because of that, we become, and also the community become more confident. And then we also built a coalition to many organizations who have a similar approach and also same vision. That's also including the Habitat for Humanity Indonesia and also other organizations as well. And then we have this coalition called Collective Housing Coalition, or in Indonesian language called Koalisi Perumahan Gotong Royong, which is push the government and certain ministries such as Ministry of Cooperative, Ministry of Housing, and Ministry of Public Works, Ministry of Finance, and all related ministry that connected to the housing policies in order to address several things, such as collective ownership, to address the agrarian problem, that one thing, and at the same time to providing collective financing, which is subsidized and also could be utilized by residents, which is informal workers, because usually the informal workers, they don't have they don't have pay slip, and they earning by day, and that's why they need a different kind of mechanism that outside of the typical banking system. And that usually that what we offer is a true cooperative that's setting up by the residents. So the cooperative itself could build up maybe similar to like a credit ratings, but by the communities. Like as long as you have a record of saving among the communities, then the communities also could kind of like accredited that certain person could be can be trusted. And actually, that's what we implement already in the housing improvement program that I told you earlier, and also in other cities as well. For example, in Yogyakarta, they have already a housing cooperative that I think the members kind of like almost 1,000 members, and already helping to improve houses in Yogyakarta for more than like 200 houses already. So I guess that's a model that already proven. And then right now we also participating in drafting a new Ministry of Cooperative regulation that could enable the housing cooperative to be set up in Indonesia. So that's part of the advocacy that we can do in order to address certain problem that facing by the urban poor.
Thank you, Eliza. That was very informative. So, one of our key learnings as Habitat is that, housing is a problem that has to have a participatory approach. No single agency, NGO, government unit, or a developer can address on their own. And your project is in a way sort of exhibiting that how you have a very inclusive approach, but at the center of all design is the community and the people that you serve. Thank you so much for sharing your initiative with us. So, moving on, I would like to invite Xavier from Jeris, Mongolia, to discuss a little bit about his project. A brief introduction about the project. It's called Switch Off Air Pollution in Mongolia's Cities, or SOAP. It's an EU-funded project, and it covers two points of enabling simple community-based solutions and also introducing innovative one-stop delivery model. So Xavier, I invite you to share with us about your project.
Thank you, Sabah, for introducing me and the project, and thank you to all the organizers for bringing us all together today. Let me start with a quick picture of what we do here in Mongolia, because it will help framing everything that I would like to share. We work in what are called the GER districts. It's informal settlements surrounding Mongolian cities that are hosting around 60% of the rapidly growing urban population. People live in self-built individual houses without building standards or in traditional felt tents called yurt or ger, with no connection to central heating, relying entirely on coal stoves to survive the winters that are regularly reaching -30 to -40 degrees Celsius. These households are simultaneously the primary source of urban air pollution and its first victims. So around 60% of the air pollution of Ulaanbaatar, the capital, is estimated to come from this domestic coal burning. And 1 in 10 deaths in Mongolia is linked to air pollution. The SOAP2 project, so Switch Off Air Pollution Phase 2, has been funded by the European Union through the Switch Asia program. And our approach has 2 connected entry points. The first is what we call simple solutions. So it's very low cost, low tech, do-it-yourself insulation measures that any household can implement by themselves. Sealing windows, adding door stripes, applying foam around gaps using cheap and recycled materials. The goal is not primarily technical. It can reach a maximum of an estimation of 16% of reduction of heat loss. It's mainly to give families a direct, tangible experience of what an insulated home feels like, because that experience is most probably the most powerful argument for deeper investment into insulation. This initiative starts with training of trainers and volunteers in a pre-selected area, mostly Mongolian Red Cross volunteers, because they are recognized and involved on the long term in their area. The creation of freely available technical manuals depicting the various solutions and how to apply them, and training of interested households organized by the support of local authorities. And all this ecosystem is local, allowing a better anchorage in the Mongolian landscape. It has also a self-replication mechanism into it by providing to an household that has insulated its own home and successfully convinced 5 neighbors to do the same to receive professional insulation of the roof as a reward. The second entry point is what we call the Dulan Shidel model. It means warm solution in Mongolian. This is what we call a one-stop shop. Its goal is to connect all the key local actors along the retrofitting journey. Households coming through a call center or a digital platform. They receive a technical assessment from a certified energy advisors. They're connected to trained artisans for the works. They can access green loan products from our partner financial institutions, and a post-work energy audit leading to a locally recognized energy efficiency certificate. All that through a single coordinated system called Dulan Shidol. It's not meant to replace local actors. It's there to organize them around the household's journey and to make sure that when someone is ready to invest in their house, the right people, right resources, and right financing are already connected and accessible.
Thank you so much, Xavier, for explaining the project. And I'm really inspired by the narration of how you're using a market systems approach, removing barriers, aligning the market actors. Still, there are local players still from your model seem to have the power, but they're working all together in alignment to improve the end product delivery for the low-income households. So a follow-up question on that is that, would you like to explain a little bit on how do you define localization and what are its implications or operational impacts on the communities?
All right, thank you for the question. So before this, first, we try to work on evidence-based from the start. Before designing any solution, we invested in baseline studies, market surveys, socioeconomic analysis, technical assessments of the housing stock. The average energy consumption in a typical Gare district house is around 554 kilowatt hour per square meter per year, which corresponds to 3 to 5 times higher than comparable climates elsewhere. Our findings shaped basically every choice that we made along the 8 years of the project. The solutions have been tested with households, adapted based on their feedback, and revised every year. We conduct what we call winter monitoring every year for the technical solution and to make sure that the most affordable and most efficient solutions are available for the households. In terms of materials, we work to prioritize locally available insulation materials whenever it's possible. This is still an emerging local production, wool insulation, for example. It's promising, but the reality is that most materials are still imported from Russia and China, and local industrial production remains too small scale to compete on price. This is a structural constraint that we have not resolved yet, and it directly affects affordability for the households. We are working with local suppliers to offer them demand, aggregation, and visibility in order to be able to lower the cost, but this is still a work in progress. All the materials are selected with care with our local partner, the BEC, Building Energy Efficiency Center at the Mongolian University of Science and Technology, to make sure that all the technical solutions are relevant in the Mongolian context of extreme cold. Regarding the required workforce, we work through local partners, the Mongolian National Construction Association, MNCA, and the BEC that I already mentioned. Together, we've built a training pipeline and documentation that covers not just technical installation skills, but also energy advisory services, occupational health and safety, waste management, gender and inclusion awareness, as well as marketing and sales. The artisans are becoming small business owners and not just workers. In terms of local finance, we work with 5 commercial banks and 6 non-bank financial institutions that have developed green loan products for energy efficiency improvements, co-designs with our partners MGFC, the Mongolian Green Finance Corporation. A government interest rate subsidy has been critical when active loan uptake is real, but when it lapses, the market stalls. And a significant share of households cannot access formal credit because their income are informal. We have been trying several options and pilots, but this remains one of the hardest problems to solve up to date. We work continuously with the Ministry of Urban Development, Construction and Housing, Ulaanbaatar Municipality, local district authorities, parliament members, and others, both to strengthen the policy and regulatory framework and to accompany their initiatives and to improve them. As examples, when the municipality launched its own initiatives of insulation and improved, its own insulation program, we provided the training methodology to them. Or when the ministry opened information centers in the GAR districts, we established presence and access to documentation there. Same for some provinces outside of Ulaanbaatar with trainings, delivery of manuals, building standards, blueprints, and presence and any information events. Look at the future. Diagnostic study we recently commissioned found that conversion from interest to completed retrofitting remains low, around 10%. So the next phase of the project will need to tackle this by reducing retrofitting costs through aggregated procurement, lowering transaction costs through better digital case management, and structuring financing so it reaches households across different income levels.
Thank you, Xavier, for explaining that. Similar to Eliza's project, you are incorporating items like financing, access to financing, materials, and training, which are all three very vital components. And any function on its own is not enabling enough to deliver adequate housing, but a combination of the three is. And the borrowing capacity of LIH, that is a issue that we face in other regions as well. And there is no short-term solution to that, but maybe the direction is towards how we can leverage better credit models that would enable these people to come into the formal markets where they can borrow with much more ease. Because right now they just fall through the gap between the formal banking channels and the requirements that are for even the microfinance institutions. So thank you so much for sharing that. One additional question I had was with regards to how do you envision scaling your project? I know you've mentioned a few, but in future, how do you see what would be your approach to making the solution more scalable?
So thank you. So first, I will start with what we built in Ulaanbaatar, the capital city. So, for example, over the last 3 years, the Simple Solution campaign that I mentioned has reached over 90,000 people through awareness activities. More than 4,000 households in the phase 2 of the project have implemented some form of insulation improvement. On the Doel and Schiedel side, we now work with over 200 trained and certified construction workers and energy advisors, supported by a network of material suppliers and connected to 5 partner commercial banks, 6 non-bank financial institutions, and several community saving groups. The platform Doel and Schiedel currently has around 37,000 followers, if I'm not wrong, on social media. It handles several hundred of technical assessment requests per year through its call center. All these actors are coordinated through the one-stop shop, routing household toward the right combination of professional support and financing based on their specific situation and financial capacity. In 2024, we extended the model in Dakhan city, the second city of Mongolia, 220 kilometers north of Ulaanbaatar. The context is meaningfully different. Lower initial awareness, a local construction sector that needed to be activated basically from scratch, different market dynamics from Ulaanbaatar. We conducted a baseline study, trained local artisans, rolled out simple solution campaigns with several hundreds of households. We established formal partnerships with provincial authorities. The exercise taught us a great deal about what transfers easily and what needs to be rebuilt locally. We had to evolve during the last 2 years to be able to reach our objectives and meet the expectations of the provincial authorities. And those lessons are directly shaping our thinking on the broader replication in the future in other areas. Today, the Doulan-Schiedel model is managed by GRS and its partners, but a central part of what we are doing now is to prepare for a transition to local ownership, developing the governance framework of the one-stop shop, mapping institutional roles and responsibilities, conducting cost analysis of the model so that local public-private entity can take it forward sustainably beyond the project's lifetime. As I previously mentioned, we recently completed a national scale-up strategy for Doulan-Schiedel, developed by an external consultancy. Its core finding is this: the challenge is not a lack of demand or technical solutions or financing instruments. It is a conversion system issue. The challenge is to develop a better structured, coordinated pathway that reliably connects all these elements. The strategy is built around 3 pillars, differentiating households into segments with different financial capacities and routing them toward appropriated pathways, self-renovation, professional renovation, or programmatic support for the most vulnerable. Second is strengthening the core functions of the one-stop shops, pre-qualification, aggregated procurement to reduce material costs, digital case management, and quality verification. And third, building a financing architecture that combines domestic public resources, green loans, guarantees, and concessional international finance structured in local currency to reduce currency risk. To scale up, we need to take advantage of the actual policy momentum. Mongolia has recently passed 2 parliamentary resolutions that create a real opening. One that redirects roughly 200 billion Mongolian tubriks per year, previously spent on coal subsidies toward insulation and clean heating. Another resolution introduces an air pollution tax generating around 100 billion tugrik per year. And together, they represent the momentum that simply did not exist 2 years ago. Regarding the future, we have submitted a proposal for a follow-up project through the last Switch Asia call for proposal. This new project would build on what we have achieved in Mongolia and extend the methodology to Cambodia in a warm context. In Mongolia, the ambition is to evolve Doulan-Schiedel from a project-based initiative into a nationally owned system orchestrator capable of mobilizing large-scale public and private investment in residential renovation. Our current partner, the Mongolian Green Finance Corporation, which is becoming a specialized green investment bank with green climate fund backing, is a central part of that financing architecture. What gives me confidence is not theory, is the fact that we've demonstrated slowly but surely that insulation is working. It's reducing coal consumption. It improves indoor air quality, measurably improves household health and well-being. So the case for investment is clear, and I think we have a lot to achieve, but a lot has been achieved already. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining the project really well. And yeah, as you said, the investment case is clear, the impact is there. Now we just have to move slowly towards impact pathway, because the project requires both behavioral change and also market systems change. These things, do tend to take time, but you're making significant progress. So that's congratulations to you for that. Moving on, I'd like to invite Usha Maski to talk about her project, which is Building Green Efficiency in Nepal, or BEAN. It's a project that aims to contribute towards development of low carbon and resource efficient construction by facilitating design and renovation. So over to you, Usha. Sorry, you're on mute, Usha.
Yeah. Yes, first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the EU Switch Asia Policy Component and Habitat for Humanity for providing me this space to explain and share our experiences that was gained from the implementation of BEAN project. Whatever the experiences that I'm sharing today, it's due to the fact that EU Switch Asia Grants Program have provided us the grant to implement the BEAN project in Nepal. And that has made a very historical move in Nepal in terms of having the discourse of energy efficiency and climate responsive buildings in Nepal. That's the discourse that have been now in the air, and it has made a very strong foundation in Nepal to move ahead in this agenda. So I would like to acknowledge that support, and that's why I'm here as well. So coming back now to the project, our project was designed for 4 years, and we covered 60 municipalities and covered 4 bioclimatic zones of Nepal, because Nepal has a very unique, diverse climatic zones, starting from like really as low as 300 meter to above 3,000 meters of habitable space. So we had to be very sensitive about the climate in case of doing the project. And being a first kind of this project in Nepal, we had to start with like really making the evidences and making the taking the building stocks. So for us, the starting point for us was for making the building sustainable, climate responsive, or climate resilient is taking the building stock, taking the notes of the building stock, building practices and construction materials, how it is being done at various bioclimatic zone. And as Janaida in the beginning mentioned, like the first thing that we hit was the design stage of the buildings. That was very important for us, because during the design, if it is not done properly in the design stage, then the inefficiencies are locked in the buildings for decades, for generations, up to 50 years or something like that. So that was very important for us, and we focused on the design stage of various. Another important part for us was to look at different building typologies, not only one type of building. So we looked into various types of buildings, ranging from large scale buildings to the very small, affordable social housing. So we looked into the various building typologies as well. That was very important because for Nepal, it is more or less owner-driven design approach, and we have various scale or various strata of economic capacities and financial capacities of the building owners. So it was important to look at various building typologies. So we looked into the office, commercial buildings, as well as the affordable social housing as well. And because design stage was important, we looked into the very primarily important stage, that's passive design strategies. We looked into that, and passive design strategies of the all the 4 bioclimatic zone. And we also, another important part was working with the municipalities that are local government, who are the primary stakeholder for policy design and implementation at local level, and working with market actors in the value chain. That was very important, because putting necessary skills and knowledge in the market was very important. And later on, based on the evidences that we generated at the local level, and we shared that at the federal level, which was very instrumental for us to make the change at the national level. So that was very important. Another very important part that we learned is, like, we had international partners coming from Austria and India as well. Like, they brought in depth of experiences and knowledge and expertise, but we did not make the copy paste of the international practices. So, and we did not make the copy paste within Nepal also, because one type of building typology and another type of building typology was different. And then we did not make the copy paste within the Nepal in terms of bioclimatic zone as well. So for us, the starting point was generating local evidences, looking at the building stock availability and use of local building materials and construction practices and the energy consumptions of the building. That was for the first time, like in Nepal, that was recorded, and that shows the picture of how buildings are consuming the energy, as well as how people are living in the uncomfortable conditions within the building. So we did the baseline studies. It wasn't only baseline studies, then we did the simulation studies. That was mathematical modeling of different types of buildings to substantiate what was found in the baseline studies for different building typologies. Based on that, and based on those local evidences, then we designed and defined the improved building performance matrix of the buildings. So the performance matrix, or the performance standards of the buildings, were designed in terms of energy consumption and most importantly, the thermal safety of the occupants. So we looked into those two major parameters and defined the performance matrix of the buildings. And based on that, we provided technical assistance to various building typologies across the 4 bioclimatic zones of Nepal and did the real-time scientific performance evaluation, performance studies of the various solutions, and further generated the evidences. And that where then these evidences were developed translated into the knowledge products targeted for various value chain actors, and also for the policymakers, particularly at the local level, at the municipality level. And based on that, then the policy provisions were designed when we were designing the policy provisions to improve the building performances, like we were really careful about not proposing or not recommending any specific practices or any specific technologies. We were rather looking at the building physics that determines the performance of buildings, such as the U value or the heat transfer of the building envelopes. So we were looking at the building envelopes, looking at what should be the value of wall, roof, and openings, and window size and positioning, all the parameters that are required for the passive design strategies, plus that determines the building physics. So we translated that scientific things into the simple languages and translated that into the knowledge products for various kind of market actors, as well as in the policy So we developed the policy based on the building physics, not on particular materials or any kind of technologies, it was easier for us to convince the owners, because they have the choice now to make the choice of building materials that are available to them locally and that are like affordable for them. And that was very convenient also for the policymakers to decide on what could be the building standard parameters that can be enforced. So it was because of that flexibility to choose any types of materials and technology over one or other, it was easier for the policymakers to make the decision on policy proposals as well, but not compromising on the performance of the building. So we gave that approach. We took that approach to convince the policymakers and the owners and the market actors. Another important lessons that we learned was it was very effective to design and build the showcase houses in collaboration with the house owners and local government. And that demonstrated the clear benefits of two aspects, energy efficiency and thermal comfort. Yes, we started with larger and big buildings, but where it was easier to sell the concept through the lens of energy efficiency, because it makes sense for them. It makes sense for them economically and financially. But going from owners of the larger building to the affordable housing, we had a very different, unique selling point. It was thermal comfort and thermal safety. That was the selling point for the affordable housing, and for policymakers and us, like it was a huge difference. And the point is, like, the municipality challenged us in one of the municipalities, which is like in the warm climate, that temperature would soar up to 43 degrees Celsius. And we were given a challenge to design climate responsive housing that is, affordable for the most vulnerable and poor people who are suffering from the increased heat, and increased incidences of flood and human wildlife conflict. So we were given the challenge to do that, and using the same approach of like building physics, we could co-design with the local municipalities and municipalities to make that kind of affordable housing more climate responsive. And we did the performance monitoring and the real-time performance monitoring, so that we could reduce the heat within the building and the difference between the buildings that were designed and implemented in compared to business as usual building were about 9 degrees Celsius actually, and we could reduce the discomfort hours by 88% for the people, for the occupant who are very poor and vulnerable, who have really difficulty in investing in appliances to keep them cool. So that was very convincing. And for this affordable housing sector, the approach that we bring on board the local trained masons, like as Jay mentioned, like the local artisans, they were not only artisans, actually, they were mobilized by the municipalities as change agents and supervisors for effective conversion from awareness to adoption. So that the trained local masons and as change agent was very effective, I would say, for the affordable housing owners. And the local government was very convinced about it, and they provided minimum subsidies for taking up the initiatives on measures on climate responsive housing, and because of that also, like, that has expedited the wider adoption, and in a single year 75 houses have been built, and the municipalities are taking it up not only in the housing but also to the schools. So I think the adoption is very high.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's in a nutshell, I would say.
Okay. No, thank you. I'm, just by listening to you, how data-backed your intervention was and how you've utilized not just data from different housing topologies within Nepal, you've also incorporated lessons from regional players. I think it's very inspiring to see your program. A quick question, if you could, really tell me very briefly that what would be your recommendation to your phased approach in adopting this project to other geographies within Asia?
I would say, like, the principles of building physics is for everywhere. It's not only for Nepal, it's not only for a cold climate, it's not only for it's for everywhere. And I think the main point here is, like, if it is not intervened at the design phase, then the inefficiencies and the discomfort is locked in the building for years to come, for generations to come. And retrofitting, in our experience, it's very, very expensive compared to what it can be done during the design phase. Our experiences show that having efficiency in the building design, that would cost maybe 0 to 10%. But if it has to be done, if the retrofitting has to be done to become responsive to the climate change, then that would cost tons, actually. It's not 0 to 10%, it's more. So I would say for others, my primary recommendations would be focus on design aspects of the buildings or social housing, even the affordable housing, and looking at the building physics. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, Usha. I would just capture it in the phrase that you build better to last better. So that's an efficient design approach that you're taking, and it's very inspiring. Last but not least, I have Van Abino, my colleague at Terwilliger Center at Habitat Philippines office. And she would be talking about Beam Monolith, a foundation retrofit solution from the Philippines. Over to you, Van.
Thank you, Saba. Hello, everybody. Mabuhay from the Philippines. I am Van Abino, a market facilitator for the Terwilliger Center for Innovation and Shelter. So yes, today I'll be sharing about Beam Monolith Foundation Retrofit Solution and the adoption pathway we are piloting with the public sector. So, an estimated 5.8 million Filipino households need their foundations retrofitted to withstand the next major climate-related disaster. This is a staggering number, considering that the Philippines ranks first on the World Risk Index. A market study done by our center revealed that 36% of houses in our target area have no foundation, while 28% require urgent foundation retrofitting. This means that a significant proportion of low-income households live in homes that may not withstand the next typhoon or earthquake. Another surprising finding of the market study is that even local construction workers have weak or have no foundations in their houses. And each year, natural climate events damage approximately 770,000 homes, with the government spending more than $3 billion on recovery efforts. However, the challenge is not merely technical. It is a symptom of a broken market system. Let me tell you why. The first step is that we try to find a solution. And what we did is that we launched a global crowdsourcing competition in 2020. And the design brief was simple. It has to be a low-tech solution. It needs to protect houses against typhoons, strong winds, and earthquakes, and can be constructed really quickly. And lastly, should be affordable at $500 per house. We received 80 proposals from 24 countries, and the winning solution is called Beam Monolith. It is a foundation retrofit solution that was designed based on local construction practices, uses locally sourced materials, and relies on local skills. It is incredibly efficient at that just 2 to 3 construction workers can retrofit a home under 5 days. More importantly, Beam Monolith is a non-invasive solution. No part of the existing house will be damaged. Households can comfortably stay in their houses during construction, and no new materials will be introduced. Everything about this solution is already existing. Materials, skills, knowledge, it's already there. It's just a better way of constructing foundations and making houses resilient. So Beam Monolith is engineered to withstand 6.5 magnitude earthquakes and 200 km/h winds. It also complies with the National Structural Code of the Philippines and specially designed for incremental building, respecting the financial reality of low-income households who build piece by piece as their budgets allow. So, to test the solution, 9 Beam Monolith prototypes were built across rural and urban settings. Then, just last year, the real-world test came that within a single month, the prototypes withstood 2 devastating super typhoons and a magnitude 6.9 earthquake, along with more than 12,000 recorded aftershocks. Our own technical inspections showed excellent structural performance with no signs of damage. Households even reported that their homes remained stable and kept them safe, eliminating the need to evacuate during the climate events. Added to this evidence, the country's highest socioeconomic planning body has issued 2 resolutions endorsing Beam Monolith for adoption, especially for the public sector. We have also secured a copyright protection and licensing rights for this solution. And given that, by all technical, policy, and institutional measures, this is a solution that should already be scaling rapidly. But here is the critical paradox. Adoption is way too low. Only 1 out of 9 households correctly used the incremental building provisions of the Beam Monolith. And they still build without proper foundations, making the expanded part of their houses at risk to damage during climate events. Despite the technical evidence and high-level endorsement that we received, and that endorsement actually gave us various opportunities to present the solution to over 100 government agencies. One local government unit reached out to engage and express interest to incorporate Beam Monolith in their resilience program. Why? That's because Beam Monolith is seen as a technical product, a foundation construction method, rather than a systemic solution that can transform and accelerate the journey towards sustainable and resilient housing. One of the key advantages of this solution is that it is relatively simple for local construction workers to learn, adopt, and implement, with all the required construction materials already available in their local hardware stores. This makes it really well suited to be adopted by the low-income market. The informal economy, our local construction workers and retail suppliers, is the backbone of the housing ecosystem, and they are the primary source of housing services for low-income households. However, these actors are often excluded from the innovation cycle. If they are not trained and equipped to deliver resilient construction solutions such as Beam Monolith, households will continue to lack access to information, labor, and materials needed to build safe, resilient homes. So where we are now is the early stages of the partnership with that proactive local government unit to fix the system. In collaboration with them, we will be doing 3 things. First, is iterating the design to accommodate more housing typologies. Second, we will train local workers so they can offer BIM Monolith as part of their services. And third, that partner government agency will embed the solution into their resilience program, where information campaigns, technical support, and streamlined permitting processes will be made available to households and service providers. This ensures that the innovation doesn't just disappear after the pilot. It gains government ownership and stays in the system and becomes a permanent self-sustaining market standard. If this pathway works, we will scale it through disaster risk reduction and management offices in other local government units. And with just 20% adoption in high-risk areas in the Philippines, BIM Monolith Foundation retrofit solution can protect up to 1.16 million Filipino families, cutting displacement and recovery cost. The process takes time and deep collaboration, but resilient housing sits at the intersection of health, education, and equity, and also livelihood, which means that this is an urgent human need. And making the market work is how we get there. That's it. Thank you, Saba. I'm excited for your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Van, for sharing about the initiative. And what I would like to know is that if this solution is to be adopted, as like I was asking Usha before, what would be like, what would you say are the three key areas that you would require in the environment for this solution to scale in other geographies?
Yeah, if a country wants to adopt the same pathway we are exploring, they must look in beyond simple technical standards and focus on the systemic environment. I would prioritize these three enabling conditions. First is aligned mandates and shared vision. We must align with the correct market actor that has the mandate, influence, and authority to solve the constraint. This ensures that the process is collaborative, streamlined, and self-sustaining rather than a donor-dependent one. Second is institutional will and skill and available resources. A solution is only as good as the local capacity to maintain it. There must be high willingness to enforce the solution, existing skills to assume ownership, and the resources to sustain the program or the intervention long term. Lastly, financial linkages. The need to improve a home's structural integrity often competes with more immediate household priorities, such as daily sustenance. By providing inclusive financing services, households can access affordable options that enable them to invest in resilience, making safer and more durable housing a practical and prioritized choice. So the key challenges that they should prepare for is first, bureaucratic inertia, which is a significant challenge when partnering with a government agency. The approval process is often slow and multi-layered, requiring sign-offs across numerous departments and adhering to complex administrative protocols. These can delay implementation and test persistence, but they should factor this in extended timelines and ensure that all documentation is meticulously prepared. Second, second hurdle can be the risk-averse funding, as many government agencies prioritize short-term, visible returns on investment, and they may be less willing to invest in foundational activities such as training or streamlining permitting that don't yield immediate and tangible outcomes. The key to overcoming this is a really radical alignment. You must treat the agency not as a target, but as a partner. This requires transparent communication to understand their incentives, barriers, regulatory bottlenecks, and that if you cannot clearly articulate what problem you are solving with them and define clear ownership of the steps, activities, and all of those, the system will not move. And you must remember that you are not just selling a product, and you are proposing a shared systemic solution.
Thank you, Van. Thank you for explaining that. That brings us to the close of the sharing of project initiatives from our 4 panelists. And we're almost at time. I think if any of our panelists has a question for their peer, that would be an interesting way to share aligned learnings and to reach to a conclusion of the session. All right. Okay, I think I don't see any question from the panelists at the moment. So thank you so much to all 4 panelists for sharing their projects. The key takeaway is that the housing solutions, how the intersection of various interventions is very important. It must include consumer education, financial solution, along with the strengthening of the supply and labor skill value chains in the system. Thank you so much for joining us for this session. Over to you, Elodie, for the panel number 2.
Thank you so much, Sabah, for moderating perfectly this fantastic panel that shared so many interesting experiences and how to include all in decision making and make the best decisions for circular buildings. So I'd like to now move on to the second panel, which focuses more on policy. Before I do that, please feel welcome to ask your questions in the chat box. I can see that some of you have already done that and have received answers. So please continue. And Van, you may have seen, I can see that you're looking attentively at the screen. There is a question for you there. So please continue to ask the questions there. I see that Ambikeshja has raised a hand, so that's a good opportunity to ask your question there. And now I'd like to pass the floor to Cosima to moderate the second panel, more focused on policies. Cosima,
Yes.
the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Elodie. Yes, I mean, already we have spent more than an hour with incredibly insightful contributions from really various backgrounds and also, regional contexts. So I'm really excited to build on this panoply of insights by taking a look at the level above, basically the policy framework that is needed to create the market-based solutions that our previous panelists spoke so eloquently about. And I'm joined on this panel by Marco Lamberti Tornari of the Joint Research Center, by Mr. Nafisur Rahman, who is the Principal Research Officer of the Bangladesh Housing and Building Research Institute, Lachindra Mahajan, who is Program Director of Habitat for Humanity Nepal, and Dr. Xiu Gao, who is a Senior Engineer at the China Architecture Design and Research Group. Maybe just a quick word about the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, because this may not be fully known in the Asian context. It is basically a department that provides independent evidence-based knowledge and science and supports EU policies to positively impact society across various sectors and fields. And there are more than 3,000 employees that work for this center. It works also on stakeholder engagement and advisory work on standards, also as part of the program of putting science into standards. And another key aspect that is being worked on right now by the EU and also the JRC is the question of improved resilience of the European society and its economies. And with that, I would like to invite Mr. Marco Lamberti Tornari, who represents the Joint Research Center, to the floor. Marco works on safety and security of buildings, including on innovative building materials. And the first question in this regard would be, from the European experience on building and construction policy, as well as with regard to markets and demand creation, what can mainstream green and circular building materials? Marco, please.
Thank you, Cosima, for your introduction and for this question that is very broad and complex. I try to answer. The European Commission acts as a regulatory body, supports the green transition in the construction sector through a multi-layered approach. The GRC also directly works on the research, and for instance, we developed a taxonomy of design for the construction that provide standardized framework for designing building that can be easily disassembled and reused. And more on the practical side, we also developed some experimental projects such as reuse that also pioneering sustainable construction by using modular timber panels that can provide both shelter in crisis scenario and affordable housing during the reconstruction scenario. So the first point is the policy framework that is the Commission is setting the rules, use regulatory updates to support the green transition, both with voluntary green guidelines and mandatory requirements. The two parts of this policy can be recognized as the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, ESPR, and the Construction Product Regulation, CPR. This regulation allowed the EU to set a minimum environmental footprint and mandatory recycling content baseline for each construction material. They are also combined with the other policy like Industrial Acceleration Act that established sector-specific target for buyers and legally requiring a term for purchasing minimum share of low-carbon building material, as well as we have developed the EU levels framework that is a standardized assessment tool to evaluate the building behavior into the life cycle performance. The Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation is a new, and more than this, the new revised Construction Product Regulation, rather than work as an isolated laws, operated as a dual-layer strategy. The ESPR defines how materials are designed for circularity, while the Construction Product Regulation dictates how those materials are verified and sold in the EU single market. The revised Construction Product Regulation have a core shift in the new revised environmental performance that is now legally tied to market access. Previously, the CE marking used in Europe for selling construction product looks only at structural safety performance. Now also tracks the climate data. Why? Because the global warming potential of each construction product is embedded into the certification. So each product that will be sold on the European market must be accompanied by the third-party verification of the carbon footprint calculated with the life cycle assessment. More than this, the Eco-Design for Sustainable Product Regulation defines mandatory recycling content for each specific product and for secondary and reclaimed raw material that are allowed also in structural component now. There is not only use that can be used or not, but now they are covered by the regulation. The Construction Product Regulation also looks at durability and reusability. Durability to extend the life cycle of building, and reusability to improve the cycle of building, ensuring that elements like steel beams or modular facade or concrete element are designed for structural disassembly without degradation, so can be reused and reused. Of course, there is also a focus on substance of concern that cannot be used or cannot be released by the product. What is the insurance of this policy is the digital product passport. To ensure the compliance with the ESPR and the CPR, the digital product passport is required for every building element. Every steel beams, every precast slab or glass assembly have its own digital assigned identity card, and this passport contains technical data, end-of-life disassembly instruction, and exact carbon footprint. So from the beginning, the custom authorities use this passport to automatically verify the imports at the EU border. And at the same time, you can follow the life of this product up to the end, up to the disassemble and reuse or disposal of this part. All these parts are also building to the Eurocodes. Eurocodes are also adopted some in Asia by several country that looks at Eurocodes with interest, and the structural Eurocodes provide the missing link in the regulatory framework. They transform circular construction from a policy goal to legally compliant structural safety engineering reality. So, historically, the Eurocodes that harmonize the European standard for construction were entirely focused on new virgin material. Now, the second generation of Eurocode directly serve as engineering support for structural adaptability, material reuse, and design for the construction. There are more technical part in this that who are interested. Then I put some link in the chat to open access document that can be consulted. But what is the next step? The next step is a proposal by the GRC, an harmonized taxonomy for design for the construction, adaptability, and reuse. This matches the mandates of Energy Performance Building Directive and the CPR. So the GRC proposed to utilize the Eurocodes to establish a formal taxonomy for design for the construction. And I can share also some details on this because we have a public paper on this. Finally, the last mile of this evolution is the research project Reuse, developed inside by the GRC. And this developed modular timber panels designed for rapid assembly and totally deconstruction. That was also tested by the European Laboratory for Structural Assessment, where I work in ISPRA, performing experimental testing with earthquake level up to the highest magnitude experimented in Italy, and we reached the goal to double this level, so we are able to produce buildings that can be deployed, used, dismantled, and reused without having any damage. So it's a damage-free building for this. They are optimized for transport, so the modular timber panels are specifically lightweight and designed to be packed and flat into standard shipping containers. Use only dry connection, so no needs for setting concrete or complex welding. The use system utilizes specialized mechanical interlocking joints, and this allows to unskilled labor during the emergency response to rapidly snap or bolt structures together on site within hours without specialized heavy tools. These have also high structural resilience for disaster zones, so temporary emergency housing that is historically vulnerable to secondary disaster like aftershock for earthquake or high winds are solved by this system, and that use seismic dissipating device to absorb and dissipate energy during the earthquake or high winds. So the modular panels use damage-free connection, then have zero residual damage that can be reused for other. What is the main cascading effect of this? We can move the life cycle for from shelter to permanent housing. The most significant breakthrough of this project is that eliminating the throwaway nature of emergency architecture. So the construction realignment, once the emergency phase ends, the exact same structural panels can be cleanly unbolted, retransported, reconfigured, and using for other civic infrastructure like school, ambulatories, or multi-story residential buildings. That's the same. So the advantage for government is that they retain highly valuable carbon storing structural that can be used and reused across successive building life cycle to avoid also the degradate and landfill landside. So that is all of from my side, and I will put all the detail in the chat. And I'm also happy to answer the question in the chat. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you so much, Marfo. This was really a tour de force across both the larger framework as well as looking into one specific really interesting technology. And I think this type of modular building is also something that our next panelist, Mr. Nafisur Rahman, is very familiar with. He is the Principal Research Officer of the Bangladesh Housing and Building Research Institute, which is an autonomous organization under the government of Bangladesh Ministry of Housing and Public Works. The institute has recently co-developed the Green Building Certification Framework, which is a nationally tailored system designed to promote sustainable, climate resilient and resource efficient buildings. And Nafis was also the co-author of a recently published report on circularity in the building sector by Switch Asia, which you can find on our website. So Nafis, if I may, where does Bangladesh stand on building and construction policy, as well as with regard to demand creation for green circular building materials, and also as an add-on, where do you see modularity coming in here as well?
Okay, thank you, Switch Asia and Habitat for Humanity for the invitation and to this program. Actually, you know that Bangladesh is a tiny country. We have only 57,000 square mile of area, and the population is 180 million. So huge population in a tiny area. So and in our constitution, the housing also addressed as a basic need. So the problem is everyone here in Bangladesh wants an individual home for them. So policy is one of biggest good instrument to regulate all those things in our housing sector. So the policy landscape in Bangladesh regarding green and circular building materials is progressively taking shape. The Bangladesh National Building Code, the BNBC, is mandatory for construction as it is legally integrated in our national building construction law since 2006. The BNBC 2020 features a specific chapter dedicated to sustainability. So this sustainable construction is a mandatory in Bangladesh. This chapter has served as the foundation for developing two national green building rating systems. The first one is BEER, Building Energy Efficiency and Environmental Rating, and another one is Green Affordable and Resilient Certification for Habitats Green Earth. And further driving this momentum, the Capital City Development Authority recently introduced incentive for green building by granting an additional 0.5 floor area ratio in their detailed area plan. So lots of policy framework are there. And beside that, the central bank issued a policy. They're offering soft financing, only 5% interest rate finance for green certified industries and for affordable and climate resilient housing. So we have two policies. We have some legal based policies, and we also have incentivization in our housing sector to promote more sustainable and then circularity in construction. Additionally, The sustainable alternative traditional clay burnt brick, such as concrete hollow block, are now officially included in our national building code. And also we address these issues in our green building rating as well. We address them as more environment friendly and circular materials. And though formal sector support from circular in construction materials remains largely absent, existing code and policies does not directly promote or incentivize the use of recycled or refurbished construction materials, even mostly in public sector, because there is a need in public sector, in public construction, that the quality maintenance also need to be take care. That's actually so always there is a space that we want to procure the newly and certified materials. Those circular materials are not that much popularized in Bangladesh. For example, but beside that, in private sector, steel and cement, this large to construction sector, they are actually using mostly circular things in their productions. You know that Bangladesh, we are one of the leading countries that we produce steel from shipbreaking industries, and also we are using fly ash from cement. So these are in the privately it's happening, but not in formally well addressed. But in our green building rating system and our other policies, we are now addressing this sort of thing. However, this practical adoption has not yet translated into regulatory mandates like PIMS. Even with this recent publication of Sustainable Procurement Policy 2025, the principle of circular economy need more attention and in this policy framework. I believe there is a room for inclusion of circular construction in our public sector, even in our national policies as well.
Amazing. It's really interesting how, in Bangladesh, there's also the connection of dots around both sustainability, resilience, and even circularity. Going from Bangladesh to a larger context, what would be your recommendations to governments with regard to a structured phase-in of green building codes and standards, and how can this be done in a locally and inclusive, locally adapted and inclusive manner that really considers also the unique situation of vulnerable populations?
Thank you. Actually, as in, by training, I'm an architect, and beside that, I'm also a green building professional. So I had the opportunity to develop 2 national rating systems here in Bangladesh. So from my experience, what I found that green building code are not fashion of statement for Asian countries. They are necessity because buildings consume roughly 40% of primary energy across construction operation. But in Bangladesh perspective is a bit different. In Bangladesh case, actually, our building consumes almost 70% electricity every day. So it is huge amount of electricity that buildings consume. So with this recent, even the recent global geopolitical crisis, making energy price highly volatile, then green building codes are vital for ensuring energy efficiency, conservation, and resource efficient construction. However, those codes should not rely on single standard, because there is a myth in worldwide that if you have a single streamlined code, then it will solve. It's a well-written thing. It may solve all problems across the world regarding the building and construction sector. But the irony is the climate, local resource, construction methods, materials, and social structure varies from country to country. So true green building must look beyond environmental metrics to address social sustainability as well. For example, in our Bangladeshi local rating system, what we have prepared here, the Green Arch and B certification has some different. We have introduced some. I said very uncommon and unique features within us. So we introduced the disabled-friendly design in our green building rating, clean cooking, and support for female and third gender construction workers to ensure vulnerable population are part of the sustainable development. So because, and these are the, I say this is unique among the world. So because we face this sort of a problem in our daily life, in daily construction. So so lots of female workers are working in the construction sector, but they are not properly recognized. Even we have lots of policy in our national building code, but it is not practiced like disability friendly design. So we try to incorporate this sort of thing, and we are trying to make it some sort of in practice, because there are now incentives are there. So people are now willing to address this sort of thing. So from my opinion, that Asian countries, nation must adopt the holistic approach and localized approach to achieve meaningful sustainability. Because sustainability doesn't mean only resource efficiency and energy efficiency, but it should consider everything. Countries like Asian countries. So that's my opinion about this sort of thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nafis. Very insightful, really, and it leads us very nicely into our next panelist, Lachindra Mahajan, who is the program director of Habitat for Humanity Nepal. As such, of course, she is very closely connected to the implementation projects on the ground, but her background also relates to, let's say, the social questions at large that we are always, of course, thinking about in the housing sector. So she has also worked on children's rights, climate justice, gender equality, and social inclusion, as well as organizational management and policy advocacy. And welcome to the panel, Lachindra. For you, we have the question of what is really needed at a national level in terms of policy and institutional investments to support the development of a market for certified sustainable, resilient construction products that are, of course, also linked to the questions of social inclusivity and local adaptability. So how can this be made to work in a national context, for example, through testing laboratories, enforcement mechanisms, monitoring schemes, etc.? Please, Lachindra, the floor is yours.
Cosima, thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. Please excuse my voice today. I have a slight, throat infection. I have been saving my voice for this panel discussion for past couple of days. Sometimes the greatest barrier to innovation isn't the absence of solutions; it's the absence of recognition. In Nepal, bamboo, never the problem. The problem was that our institutions hadn't yet caught up with what had known for generations, what the communities had known for generations. My name is Lakshindra. I'm the program director at Habitat for Humanity Nepal. So glad to be here, and thank you for this opportunity. And I'd like to begin with one simple observation. Circular building materials do not transform housing systems on their own. They transform housing systems when evidence is translated into policy and when policies create confidence for markets to invest. That has been Habitat Nepal's journey over the past decades. Nepal has long had abundant bamboo resources. Communities have used bamboo for generations because it is locally available, affordable, renewable. Yet, despite its potential, bamboo remained largely outside the formal housing sector. Unfortunately, it was not recognized in national building regulations. Engineers lacked official design guidance. Municipalities could not approve bamboo buildings. Financial institutions could not confidently finance them, and the private sector had little incentive to invest in certified bamboo products. Thus, as Habitat, we realized that our challenge was not simply promoting bamboo as an alternative building material. The real challenge was creating an enabling ecosystem where sustainable construction products could be trusted, certified, financed, and adopted at scale. Our first lesson is that evidence builds market confidence. Have Nepal work with government agencies, universities, and technical experts, private sectors to generate engineering evidence through structural testing, material research, and field demonstrations. We've been building bamboo houses for quite some time, for a decade or more. The evidence we generated demonstrated that treated bamboo can provide safe, durable, climate resilient, and disaster resilient housing. However, technical evidence alone does not change markets. And our second lesson is that policy coherence is essential for market transformation. Sorry. One of the biggest barriers to scaling circular construction is that policies often evolve in isolation. A country may promote green buildings or climate resilience, but if building regulations do not recognize sustainable materials, testing and certification systems are absent, financing mechanisms do not support them, and public procurement continues to favor conventional materials, then policy only doesn't really work. We deliberately work to close one of these critical policy gaps through the leadership of Department of Urban Development and Building Construction under Ministry of Urban Development, and also with multi-stakeholder technical groups. Nepal developed its first national bamboo guideline last year in November 2025. Importantly, we see the guideline not as the destination, but it is the foundation actually. It opens the pathway for developing bamboo norms and material specifications, integrating bamboo into National Building Code, strengthening certification and quality assurance systems, and ultimately giving municipalities, financial institutions, and the private sectors the confidence to invest in bamboo as a mainstream construction material. Today, we are adding a third layer of evidence. One recently completed greenhouse gas assessment demonstrates that circular construction is not only technically feasible, it is also a climate solution. The study found that a typical treated bamboo house emits approximately 94% less carbon than a reinforced concrete house of a comparable size. This reinforces that certified circular construction products can simultaneously contribute to climate mitigation, disaster resilient, affordable housing, and local economic development. Based on Nepal's experience, I believe there are three critical investments required to develop markets for certified sustainable construction products. First, invest in knowledge infrastructure, including accredited testing laboratories, research institutions, and local evidence generation to build confidence in product performance, safety, and environmental benefits. That's very important. Second, invest in policy and institutional coherence by translating evidence into nationally recognized standards, building codes, certification systems, quality assurance mechanisms, and financial policies that reinforce one another and all are aligned, where appropriate, with international frameworks such as ISO. Third, invest in market development through skills training for masons and other human resources, sustainable supply chains, green public procurement, and innovative financial mechanism so that certified sustainable construction products become commercially viable and accessible at scale. Allow me to conclude with one reflection. Nepal has set an ambitious pathway towards achieving net zero emissions by 2045. Achieving that ambition will require transforming one of the country's most carbon-intensive sectors, that is, building and construction. The challenge before us is no longer proving that they work. Tested and proven circular building solutions such as bamboo are already available. They work. We have demonstrated it. The challenge is investing in the institutions, policies, and markets that will enable them to scale. In Nepal, bamboo was never the destination, it was the catalyst. Our real objective has always been to build a housing system that is resilient, climate smart, affordable, low carbon, and inclusive. Our experience demonstrates that when governments invest simultaneously in evidence, policy coherence, and market development, circular building solutions move beyond successful pilots, projects, and become part of countries' mainstreaming housing system. Ultimately, the question is not whether sustainable construction materials are ready for the market. The real question here is whether our policies and institutions are ready to unlock their full potential. Yeah, thank you so much. That's it from my end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lashinda. Yeah, I think the case of bamboo is particularly interesting because, of course, this is a material that is widely available across Asian countries, also the ones that are most populous. So yeah, the case that you are making, I think, is a really, really interesting one. And please also feel free to share any materials that would be of relevance in the chat. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Dr. Xiushu Gao, who is a senior engineer at the China Architecture Design and Research Group. And she leads and participates in research and development and consultation projects in the area of sustainable development, urban-rural planning, and environmental management at national and local levels in China. She leads and supports also international collaboration, dissemination, and the promotion of project outcomes, and also contributes to technology transfer and demonstration. And in fact, Switch Asia has also worked together with Dr. Xiushu Gao on a forthcoming report on circular economy and the building and construction sector, which we are very much looking forward to publish very soon. With regard to national standards and national policies, where does China stand right now with regard also to demand creation for green and circular building materials?
Thank you, Cosima, and good day, everyone. It's good to be here and share some of our progress in China. And thank you for the question, because we are promoting several of the policies at the moment. And to begin, before my answer, I'd like to share a little bit more about the background here. Also, because I'm working at the China Architecture Design and Research Group, but actually my team is working at a platform called China National Engineering Research Center for Human Settlements. So we do more R&D work rather than the planning and design, but we work closely with my colleagues here. We are working on the connection, trying to take the R&D work and transfer the technologies and knowledge, trying to connect with the real engineering work. So in China now, we have seen the fastest and largest urbanization progress in the world. And by the year of 2024, I think our urban residents, the share of our urban residents had reached 67%. And that makes really a major stage change. Let's say China's urbanization is now moving from the faster growth to a more stable and higher quality development. And our work here in China largely shaped by our national policies and also the commitments to the international policies. For example, the UN 2030 Agenda and the New Urban Agenda, etc. They are all calling for cities to be inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So in China, we have several national policies also point in the same direction. And I would like to share that we have a very important conference last year, the Central Urban Work Conference. And the previous one was like held a decade ago. So this is a very important milestone that calls for a new path of urban modernization in China, and also working for the modern cities that are more livable, resilient, and smart. So this conference and also the policies from the conference guide our work in the building and the housing sector. And also we have the other policies like for the green buildings and energy efficiency, urban renewal and green building materials, and also low carbon transition that's in line with our carbon neutrality, carbon peaking and carbon neutrality commitments. So these are really the focus. And now it's also meaning that our work is heavily shifting on the quality of existing stock. And also earlier this year, actually in May 2026, we have released the 15th five-year plan for urban renewal in China. This is our first national plan focused specifically on urban renewal. It also shows that this area becomes a long-term national strategy, not just a local project. And also the plan includes very clear goals, indicators, and major projects for the next 5 years, confirms the shift in China that urban development is moving from the large-scale expansion to quality improvements of existing areas and existing stocks. And the shift also supported by very strong financial investment from our central government. Some figures like for the year 2026, the public investment located 97 billion RMB. That's roughly like 13 or 14 billion US dollars allocated for the old residential community renovation and housing renewal projects. And also another 160 million RMB was set aside through ultra long-term special treasury bonds for underground utility network construction and renewal. And in total, this means 257 billion RMB. That's like 35 billion US dollars in central fiscal support. And also, local governments are also allowed to issue special purpose bonds for qualified urban renewal projects. This creates like very stable and more diverse funding channels. Another key concept I would mention is in our construction and housing sector is the good housing, good neighborhoods, good communities, and good urban districts that we mentioned, like 4 goods in the sector. So at the housing level, good housing means that more than a place to live. So the government is trying to spread the idea that nowadays people do not only want housing, they want better living. And we want to introduce more technologies and more ways of working to promote the safety, comfort, and also the green performance and smart features. This also means that we can serve the people, the residents of different age groups, including our senior and also young children. And in practice, this includes better durability and better sound insulation, ventilation, and daylight, indoor air quality, etc. Those are the focus of our not only the R&D work, but also from the perspectives of our architects and planners. So the direction is now reflected in the new mandatory residential building code, which was also took effect in last year in May 2025. For example, the codes that it takes a really like a holistic and whole project view of housing quality and sets specific requirements on the scale, layout, function, and also performance and key technical measures. For example, like in the new code, raised the ceiling height from 2.8 meters to 3 meters and improved the requirements for sound insulation and also the requirements for lifts for the new buildings. And these are small technical changes, but really reflect a much bigger shift in the demand from providing a really good and living quality. And also another important feature is low carbon development and also climate resilience. They are becoming more important. We are no longer talking about the energy efficiency. We talk about the durability, adaptation, and life cycle performance. So like the heat stress, flooding, and also some other climate risks are really the key factors in the building design and also renovation. High performance green materials are really essential, and also because they support the thermal comfort and sound control, indoor air quality, and long service life, etc. And on the demand side, in the report, together with the Switch Asia project, also I mentioned we introduced the government procurement policy since 2020, and now it's really become an important policy tool for green building and also for green building materials. In the 2020, the policy started in 6 pilot cities, and since last year, the scale has expanded to 101 cities, covers the public buildings like also hospitals, schools, office buildings, but also affordable housing, and now really focusing on the urban renewal projects as well. So for these projects, all the mandatory category materials must be green certified. And for optional category materials, at least 40% must meet the green standards. And the updated 2025 catalog also expanded the number of green materials categories from 75 to 108. And also the policy introduced the carbon footprint assessment for the very first time. In addition, also in the requirement, the progress payments are required to be no less than 80% of the value of completed work, which also helps ease the cash flow pressure for suppliers and contractors. So we are trying to promote the idea of sustainability and circularity, but it's really a systematic issue. It cannot only solved by the technology, innovation, and also the standards alone, but also we need to cross the sectors, and also we need to introduce the finance and also involve more industries and also the other design, construction, and also operational and renovation, all those stakeholders on the floor. So this is also where the challenge lies. We are trying to expand our network and trying to involve more teams in these projects. And from a technical point of view, I think we need to really move from those policy goals and to a project level delivery. I think that's for now. And we need to introduce those stage by stage and trying to have better tools for the life cycle assessment and also carbon accounting in different projects. Thank you. Cosima?
Yes, thank you so much, Sue. That was a very comprehensive overview over the current situation in China. It is very impressive. I think it also, demonstrates how seriously this issue is taken, and how, as we heard from a previous panelist, it's really also about creating the frameworks, because the next steps of or the in the building sector, we have this situation that due to the long life of buildings, basically there is a lock-in also of sustainability decisions that has to be really tackled at the design stage already. With this, amazing round of panelist contributions, I would like to hand back to our two lead representatives of the two organizations. Sanjeev, would you like to formally take over the wrap-up on behalf of Habitat for Humanity, to then be followed by Zinaida? Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your participation and all the good works that you have been carrying out through your agencies to serve the communities that we need to serve, and the ones that are most vulnerable, and the ones that have low income and that we're actually helping. So thank you, everyone. And let's keep the momentum going. And most importantly, what I would like to emphasize here is to have this partnership going with EU Switch. Let's keep continuing. Let's have more of these. And looking forward to everyone's support and coordination in the coming days and in the future. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you to Sabah. Thank you to LOD and many others that have contributed in the last 1 year. I would say that we had been having conversations around having this type of a conference. These are very valuable, and many notes have already been taken. Many reflections have been given out. So once again, thank you so much, and really looking forward to more interactions, more coordinations, and more work with EU Switch. Thank you.
And without missing a beat, thank you very much, Sanjeev, for fantastic collaboration. Let me spend literally 2 minutes on a couple of observations, but starting with thanks. Thanks are always very important. Elisa, Xavier, Usha, Van, Marco, Nafis, Lachandra, Siu, thank you very much for fantastic sharing. So colleagues, we have quite a lot of references in the webinar chat. It was really quite a lot of important insights and information, both through the publication and through sharing and through questions and answers. Saba, Cosima, thank you very much for facilitation. You've been very good insight digging and facilitating facilitators. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Elodie, for making it all to the fore. And of course, big thanks to Habitat for Humanity. Work with you always has been a pleasure. Just 2 or 3 points. What is clear, and I think the helicopter view for those of us who really had a pleasure to absorb all this wisdom, a few things become very obvious. Number one, there is a clearly some interesting challenge has emerged. It came particularly through Xavier, your formulation. So while we do sometimes have excellent elements of the system on finance technology market, so real effort might be needed really for creating reliable connection, to creating ecosystem for certain things to happen. That's very, very important. The second observation, also very important, that we really clearly see that interpretation and work, what is coming across under the banner of circular economy, is gradually shifting from focus on waste, on recycling, and lately on the production processes to really upstream, which is extremely important. And we are focusing on the design. And design becomes not only engineering design or scientific design, it's really design of course, materials, which requires a lot of science and technical knowledge, but also co-design with local communities, with business associations, with the governments and not government responsible for the construction material or constructions themselves, but across the whole board, with finance, with economy, with land management, etc. So that's second one. Very, very important. What we can see is that certainly there is also evolution of the policy, and thank you very much, Marco. So I would say you, from the EU perspective, made it very clear that it's really focused really from the regulations and standards related to material, to more structural aspect of construction, reuse, longevity, and CO also echoes this to large extent, the same happening in China, where very, very important aspects of focus on inclusivity, on quality, where quality is understood as quality of not only construction, but quality for the environment, quality of life, quality for accessibility of the housing is happening. So we are really speaking now at the more holistic systemic approach, and let us hope that this becomes transforms from being really exceptional set of practices and innovations to the mainstream. And I would like to also, as a last point, to emphasize something, Marco, you written in the chat, where you are reflecting on Lachandra's talk. You're saying Lachandra talk on bamboo was very insightful. In Nepal, he faces the same standardization and market-related obstacles as various innovative materials in Europe. While the countries and materials may differ, the problems remain similar. And I'm pretty sure all of us can sign up under this for just any country. So the question is that how do we, or the call really is to keep in touch, to share good solution, to share problems and co-design certain answers collectively. And we are happy on behalf of Switch Asia from the EU side, and also we as a program to walk with you on this journey. Thank you very much to the audience for fantastic questions, for staying with us for a very long webinar. So we do hope for continuation. Thank you very much. Cosima, over to you to let us go.
Thank you so much, Zinaida. Yes, I mean, I'm thrilled to have the last word, but I really have nothing to add, maybe except for thanking everyone involved. It's amazing to see, you know, how the different agendas come together, of also Habitat for Humanity and Switch Asia, and yeah, just the illustrious group of panelists that we could gather here. And I really hope that we have inspired and brought some momentum to our panelists as well as our participants. We are all working on this large, sometimes overwhelming topic, but I think if we look back 10-15 years, the discussions have really shifted, and it's great to be talking at the systemic level now, and really about frameworks and not singular decision making and singular one-off incentives. So yeah, looking forward to how the sector will develop within the next 10 years. Thank you very much.